Welcome to your Daily 5 for Monday, January 20th, 2025. I've talked before about the fact that when celebrities die, I generally don't have much of a reaction to it. And that's generally because I usually don't know any of them, or at least none of the major celebrities that have died or anybody that I've ever met directly in person. But that there are rare individuals that when they go, I do regret the fact that we will no longer get their input into the world. And I've talked before about George Carlin and Bernie Mac at least a few times. Now, those were comedians whose observations and performances I felt were just so interesting and different that to no longer have them, I regret that I'm not going to hear more from them. And now, of course, we have to add David Lynch to that, who died last Thursday, most likely, at least in some part, to emphysema from a long life of heavy smoking. And again, I didn't know David Lynch at all. I obviously am a fan. I've talked about my admiration for his work many times, his many different types of work. But the thing that really saddens me is that we have lost a unique artistic voice in the world. And that's the thing is, every artist is a unique voice in the world. Nobody will see the world the way that they do. So was he the best film director I've ever seen? No. Was he the best storyteller? No. Do I know anyone else who expressed his views in film form like he did? No, I can't think of anybody else who is anything like David Lynch. And it is sad to me that we're not going to get it. I mean, of course, everybody dies. We know that every artist has an end point at some point in their life. Nobody lives forever. So this is something, and especially because of the emphysema diagnosis, it wasn't exactly a shock, but it doesn't make it any less palpable that we don't have that voice in the world. And the thing that I loved about Lynch was that he was so unwilling to try to explain what his artistic vision was. He expected, and in fact, I think intended, for audiences to have to interpret what his work was. He didn't want you to come in and then he would tell you whether you were right or wrong about whatever you felt in the film. The point was to feel something in the film, or animation, or music, or any of the things, his paintings. He did so much stuff that I think most people aren't even aware of. But that was the thing. It wasn't. There is so much over-explanation today in media where you're told, well, this is what this means, and this is what you're supposed to take out of it. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily always a bad thing. There is such a thing as being too ambiguous, but there's a difference between directionless mystery, where you don't think the person actually knows what they're doing, and somebody who is creating an environment in which you have to bring something of yourself to it, in which you have to inhabit at least part of that artistic conversation. And that's really what it felt like. That Lynch was, because he had said at one point, I don't remember the exact verbiage, but somebody said, well, what is this film saying? And his response was, I'm not going to tell you. The film is what I'm saying. You have to come to it and you have to take something out of it. And that's really one of the things that I don't think we get a lot out of artists. Artists are all too willing sometimes to say, well, here's what I meant when I did this. And again, that's not always bad, but there seems to be an awful lot of it. And I do like the fact that Lynch and others, he's certainly not the only one, I don't want to make it like he's the only one who does this either, are willing to say, no, I've put this here. You're going to take something out of it. And I'm not going to tell you whether you're right or wrong. I know what was in my mind and my heart when I made it. But I also understand that you can see things differently, because it is again, a recognition that everybody sees the world differently. We agree on things, generally. But the reality is no other person will see the world the way that you do. And creators, if they're extremely successful, are able to take a little of that and provide it so that you can see that altered perspective and then take something from it. And I think that's what I really loved about David Lynch, was even in his most conventional work, there were little things that were just different enough. But in his best stuff, his wildest stuff, you really had to go in there and then come back out and think about it. And what was on the surface frustrating for a lot of people, but what I think was actually exactly the point, was that nobody would agree what any of it meant. Twin Peaks is a great example. Mulholland Drive, Eraserhead, certainly. These things, there are writings about what these films mean. And they're certainly not wrong for those viewers, but they're also not right for you. It's what you took out of it that means something, not what somebody else told you were supposed to take out of it. And I don't see a lot of people who are able to engage with that in such a unique and surreal way, the way Lynch did. I'm not saying there'll never be somebody else like him. There probably will be in the annals of time. Time's a long, long curve, and we only get to experience a tiny bit of it. But at least for right now, David Lynch was a singular voice, a unique vision. And sadly now we are deprived of that vision, and that does make me, a little sad. Later.